hopefully it should be where it needs to be. Just double check everywhere. We're definitely there on Facebook.
That's good.
And YouTube, and here's Stevie Boy. There he is.
Going.
Another one of these gentlemen that if Heineken did chairman, then he'd be on the front. He'd be on the front with Heineken.
Evening.
How are you, sir? You all right?
I'm very good. Everyone well?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
All good, mate.
Congratulations, Keith. I know it's a bit old news now, but
yeah, cheers, mate. Thank you. long time coming.
Glad to see you back where you need to be.
Yeah, thanks.
You can give him the money after, yeah?
Dave, there's about 20,000 people that have sent me the same message. I'm skinned. Referees have been pleased. I've been good as gold. Absolute good as gold for all 4 games. Don't know how long it's going to last.
I was just about to say, yeah.
I just don't know if it's where I've been settling in or been missing for like 18 months. I thought I had a bit of time out. But yeah, even Saturday when the ref couldn't mark 10 yards out, I didn't go nuts.
One of those things.
I'd have mostly looked for a shovel and gone and hit him with it.
It's one of those things where he wants to get him, but you don't want to get banned straight away.
No, I'm not. I'm not
oh, dear. Well, it's 7 o'clock. It's Monday night, and a big welcome to everybody to the D&K Reposs Non League show. And we are back for the next couple of hours with a couple of superb guests tonight. But of course, we'll introduce them to you in a second. But of course, to the left, of course, is Mr. Keith Mahon. Welcome, Keith.
Evening, Dave. How are you, mate?
Not too bad, mate. Good week.
Yeah, it's not been bad. Obviously, as you know, 2 results we've had wasn't ideal, but a couple of great performances, if I'm honest. So, yeah, something to build on. But yeah, apart from that, it's all been good.
Happy days, happy days. And of course, bottom just underneath Keith, if you're looking at the screen the same way as I'm looking at mine, he's the manager of Welwyn Garden City, Nick. And welcome to the show, sir.
Good evening. Good to be here.
Making his debut today, but of course on the right hand side, somebody who's not making his debut because he's a familiar face to all of us and one of the nicest men in non-league football, and of course the chairman of Romford Football Club. So how are we, Steve?
I'm very well, Dave. Thanks very much.
Good. So, I mean, weekend. I mean, one of the things I looked at the weekend, and I don't know if anybody else saw it, but especially in the areas that I was dealing with at the weekend and doing interviews and et cetera, and but the amount of goals there was in that Isthmian Premier League this weekend was just ridiculous. I mean, I think Enfield Town was 7-0 up at half time, 5-0 up in the side, I think about 10, 20 minutes or whatever it was. And then it was Lewis and Worthing having to go at each other. I think that finished 5-4, didn't it? So there was some, and Cheshunt winning as well, I think 4-0 as well. There was just, everybody was going goal crazy.
Yeah, it was a bit mad.
Yeah, I tell you what, Dave, I'd have loved to have gone to that Worthing game. Lewis thought it was going to be an absolute humdinger. Obviously being a derby as well, but wow, what a game that is.
And Tony was actually at Enfield Worthing. He was sitting in the crowd for the game that I went to see, because he was sitting no further than about 10 yards to my right when that game was on. But it's weird though, isn't it? I suppose how you get 2 great teams like that they've literally just gone out and gone for each other, haven't they?
Well, Tony's sides they're always attacking. When he was at Cray Wanderers, they scored loads of goals, and he's got obviously Joey Taylor up front, who's mostly, one of, if not the best forward in that level, who can play higher. So yeah, I'm not surprised. And then obviously we heard about Worthing last week, Dave, that I think Alan said that they overrun you. Sometimes they commit 6, 7, 8 players, and then the centre half pops up in your box while they're playing. So it was always going to be that way. It'd be interesting looking at the highlights, seeing how many goals were teams getting it on the break.
It's not great if you're at the receiving end, but when you watch those games, and we've all been at them. I mean, we shared 7 goals first day of the season with Malden. Unfortunately, we didn't get any of them, but we shared 7 goals. And you look around these grounds, and I guess managers do it. I know chairmen do it all the time. And you think, why can't we get more people over here? You know, I mean, most games, there's very, very few non-league games that I would say are pretty dull. I think Romford have had about 3 0-0s in like the last 18 years or something, you know, and I think that's the frustrating, as you say. I mean, that Worthing game and other games, you know, you often read it, don't you? Even if you're looking at football web pages, you know, 8 goals, 2 sending offs, 3 penalties, and whatever. You think, you know, why can't we get more than 150 people turn up and watch it? And then someone says, oh, went and watched whoever it might be in the Premier League, spent 80 quid on a ticket, and it ended up being a 0-0. You know, I see more horrible games on the telly than I do going to games.
I will say that though, Steve, that game there was 1,619 people at.
Oh, that's not too bad then.
So would you have took that?
Oh yeah, that's probably our attendance for the season, Keith.
Yeah, and obviously Folkestone beating Kingstonian 5-1. That's a big one, Dave. There was 884, and then as you said, the Horsham Bishop Stortford. That's a surprise, but the crowd there 582. So you know there was some big old crowds there. The obviously East Thurrock, as you said, 8-0. There was 206. So yeah, there are some sides like that. But yeah, there was quite a few big crowds over in the Eastham and Prem. 400 at Margate, nearly 400 at Haringey, which again is good. We've been over there. 3.5 at Leatherhead. So yeah, there's some decent gates.
Yeah, I think crowds are up at the moment, aren't they, in fairness? But there are still sort of a few clubs like ours sort of, you know, struggling to get just over the 100 sort of, you know, for games. And it is a shame because usually it's a good product, isn't it? Especially if you're a neutral and you've got no skin in the game. You know, if it's 4-3, then you've seen 7 goals.
Yeah, nearly 600 at Bury, 500 at Sudbury. Sudbury, you expect that because they're fine, but 400 Tilbury hashtag, Dave. Thought that might be the case.
But I mean, you know, Nick, in the league that we're in Southern Central, I mean, I'm just literally just flicking through now, just having a look to see, you know, what the crowds were like. I mean, Kidlington 45.
Yeah, I think they're at the bottom of the league, and I don't think they're supported particularly very well anyway. But I know Burke are doing well, and they got over 260 again. We played Biggleswade, obviously, pay at Bedford. I think it was about 160 or 170, something like that. But I think, as the boys were saying, if you play an entertaining football, and there's always a lot of goals scored in our league usually as well, you bring the crowds back. You know, we're trying to boost our crowds every week. When I first went over there, it wasn't particularly good, but you know, we're getting over the 200s regularly now. So you know, fingers crossed we can climb up the league and hopefully keep them coming. It's it's hard. It is. I think every club needs as many people as they can, get as much revenue as they can. Hopefully, push the budget up as well, so you can get a few more players. It goes in hand, doesn't it? Good football wins bring more people in. So there'll be some big games though coming up for us. Obviously, we've got Bedford. They're big when Harlow come over, Ware come over, Hertford come over. So we've got a lot more local derbies now. So it's good.
What about you, Keith? What did you get at Winterthur?
Well, the first game 407. Them 376, so I'm expecting 3 bridges now. We're doing all right. I know the Whitstable people are listening. 900 and something, I think they might come out. And yeah, so we are very good. If we start being successful there, Dave, the crowds will go. You know, you could get 6, 7, 800 easily over there. I think you know a derby against Herne Bay can break 4 figures if it's like crunch time. So it's a massive club. I said this before, and I know we're going to talk about it, but it is a very, very big club with a big support because it's a proper town club. So yeah, no, it's good.
And as Keith said, we will talk about Winterthur Town today. And apologies to everybody at Winterthur that we didn't talk about it in the last couple of weeks, but we will be talking about it today. We definitely. I mean, if we can. I mean, it'd be great to start off with Welwyn Garden City, Steve, if you don't mind. Start with and I mean, what is the sort of like expectations, Nick? You know, for Welwyn Garden City, because when we first went in, that was the first sort of name that sort of for no real reason really, because I didn't know much about who was who was the powerhouses in the league. But something just told me that Welwyn Garden City would be one of the favourites to win the league. I mean, is that the case? And
well, to put it in perspective, we've probably got one of the lowest budgets in the league, that's for sure. But when I went into the club 3 years ago, the bookies have a lead, and we were 66 to 1 outsiders. So that puts that in perspective. But to be fair, the players I've got, the squad I've got, the last 2 years we've been in the playoffs both times, so that boded well. We don't concede many goals this year. We've had great runs in the FA Cup again. We had a great run in the FA Trophy last year. It's just taken its toll a little bit. We've got too many injuries, too many players out. The squad started off quite well. We had 2022. But unfortunately, like Saturday, we're down to 11 players. So, no disrespect, we had to have 6, 7 out the under 23s to make up the subs. But everyone's going to have injuries. Everyone's going to have problems. So you've got to take it on the chin, get ourselves together, and hopefully we can climb up the league. I thought we'd be unlucky at Harlow the other night. Lost out 3-2. Should have won Saturday against Bickleswade. Lost out 2-1 to a 93-minute goal. So I've got a little saying, never be too high, never be too low. So all the players are refocused, and hopefully we can get back to winning ways against FC Romania, which will be a hard game on Wednesday, and see where it leads us. But we're just trying to take one game at a time. But yeah, hopefully, I'd like to be in the playoffs, the minimum. That's the minimum.
I just interrupt you for a second, that the league, the Summer League secretary, Anthony Hughes, has just liked the show's on. So if he is watching, we wish you all the very, very best, sir. And our thoughts and prayers are with you tonight as well. So get well soon, my friend. But I mean, with Welwyn Garden, though, I mean, I said off air, you've got Jordan Watson, somebody that I know quite well from a time when I was at Averley. One of those sort of like, if you give him a chance, he's going to put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah, Jordan's done brilliant for us. I had him a year ago, and then he had another offer to go to Ware. We weren't in a position to match that offer, so he went to Ware. Didn't work out, so he's come back. So again, done brilliant for us this year. Took him a little bit of time to get sharp. He's got sharp. I think he's got 6 goals in the last sort of 3-4 games. So he's done well. We've got 2 or 3 midfield players that really shouldn't be at our level. Got a quality goalkeeper, quality back 4. We're just probably lacking a little bit up front, someone to help Jordan. But again, as everyone knows, everyone's looking for strikers. Unfortunately, that's where the money is at the moment. So we're still on the lookout. But hopefully, I've got 1 or 2 players coming back, and that should, land us in good stead, really. We try and get down. We try and play football. Unlike some of the teams in our league. So where that leads us. So some people say you can't play football and get out of the league, but we'll endeavour to do that.
One of the players I was disappointed I didn't see when you came to us on the Tuesday night was an old player of ours, and I saw that he was playing for you, or it might have been just a one-off or whatever. Was Ed Thompson?
Yeah, Ed. Well, I do the Middlesex Wanderers vets, and Ed's come in last year and played in our vets and done unbelievable. So Charlie Crowley was going away. He'd been booked up for over 6 months, so I knew he was going away. So because it was the FA Trophy, I'd asked 1 or 2 people about goalkeepers on loans, but obviously no one wanted to loan me the goalkeeper because it's the trophy, and that's fair play. So I thought, I'll give Ed a ring. Give him a ring. Come in, trained on the Thursday, played absolutely brilliant on the Saturday. Had a clean sheet, saved the penalty. But he's an experienced, quality goalkeeper, played at a higher level. And great. He's going to be on the bench again this Saturday at Mersham. So he'll be with us again, and top lad, absolutely top lad. Come in and done great, yes. And it also helped Charlie, our other goalkeeper, with their experience. Any little tips he can learn, it'd be great.
Yeah, he's a great character. And I know
lovely bloke.
When I spoke to Darren and Danny, they said, the old boy's back playing again. You're joking.
No.
I had to show him your like Twitter feed to prove the point.
Yeah, it was funny though, because I rang him on the morning, on Sunday morning, said, how are you? He said, I can't walk. He couldn't walk. So he said every now and then he'll be all right, but obviously not regularly. But yeah, he'll be on the bench again for Saturday against Mersham. So, hopefully he don't have to come on, but if he has, I'm sure he'll be okay. Yeah, saved the penalty as well, so I can't say much more.
Well, I mean, is there a lot of, I suppose tell us a little bit about the club itself. Nick, I mean, what's the club about? What's the what? Tell us a little bit about the club.
Well, it's had a little bit of a transition over the last 3 years. Obviously, it was always playing in step 5 and 6 lower levels. Then they got promoted from the 6 to 5, and then they got from 5 to 4. Which obviously is my local club, and my son was playing for them at the time, so I used to go down there and watch, and I knew a few people there. And they want to, play as high as they can. So they've had a huge transition. Chairman has changed a bit. The committee has changed a bit, but they're all pulling on the same rope and all want to endeavour to get promoted and see how far it can take us. It's going to be gradual. It can't come overnight. And, we've done well the last 3 years. But again, it's a continual process of, getting players in, changing over. Obviously, the higher the level you go, the better quality of players you've got. We're fortunate we've got some good players. But yeah, they've done the clubhouse up, which is good. We had new 3G training pitch on the Astro this year. The under-23 manager, Richard James, has come in and done wonders on the pitch. So we've invested on that. So we're trying to do everything we can to get us into a position that if we could get promoted, there won't be any problems if we go into the next step or next league.
Just quickly looking at your fixtures. You said you've got FC Romania on Wednesday, then you've got Mersham, and then you've got according to the football web pages, you're going to be busy on the 2nd of November.
No.
I don't know how big your pitch is, but you're at home to Waltham Abbey and at home to Ware on the same night. So
yeah, we're not that good. We're not that good. No, we were supposed to play Waltham Abbey, but it's the second time it's been cancelled. Both times they're cool because they couldn't get there because of the petrol crisis on the first night, and then they're in their League Cup, so that takes priority. So where have come in because we've got to play. I think every game once it's cancelled, I think you've got 41, 42 days to play it. And as we're miles behind, I could do without really playing next Tuesday, but I said, what's the point? We've got to play the games, even though shortened players, we're able to play it. And it's a big game, big local derby of Ware. There's a few ex-players from both sides playing each other, so it'd be a good game.
And you got, as we said about crazy fixtures and about them all running into each other. As you said, you had Didcot away, Harlow away, Biggleswade away, FC Romania away, Mersham away.
Yeah.
Then it's Ware at home, Bedford away, and then Colney Heath, Kidlington, and Kempston at home. Yeah,
so it's going to be a bit of a good run for us. By that time, I should have a few back for this Wednesday, and I should have a few back for Saturday. So hopefully the squad will get stronger again. But as you know, it doesn't matter who you play in our league. Every game's a really, really tough game. Probably you get an easier fixture if someone has to travel to you on a Tuesday night, because, you wouldn't really want to travel to Northley or Kidlington or anyone like that on the Tuesday, and vice versa. And I understand, like, some players can't get off of work. That's just the way it goes. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the run of games we've got. Didn't really want to be this far behind in the league. And people saying, yeah, you've got games in hand, but yeah, as you know, you've got to try and win them. So, disappointed the other night to not get anything from Harlow, and disappointed not to get anything from Biggleswade. But whereas we've had a little bit of luck over the last couple of years, things have gone our way. You got to take the rough with the smooth. It didn't go our way against Harlow, didn't go our way against Biggleswade. So we just got to put that behind us and try and refocus and go again.
Have you ever played Welwyn Garden City, Steve?
Oh, I knew you was going to ask me that. We've got people in the club, Dave, that are brilliant at that. And they would be saying, yeah, we played Welwyn Garden City in an FA Trophy game in 2009. It went to replay, and we beat them 2-1 in the replay. I can't remember who we played last Saturday. Well, I can, because I've written it down. Possibly we've played them, and apologies to them if it was a glorious night for them or whatever. But off the top of my head, I don't keep records, and I don't know. Sometimes I just find, but like when we have a thing on our website, on our forum, Facebook forum, where someone puts on this day, and they'll put a game that happened on this day, and supporters will go on there and say, oh yeah, do you remember that game? Such and such got sent off, or that's the game where we hit the bar 3 times, and I just can't remember them. Can't remember the games. Even players I struggle with. I know it's terrible. And some, I meet someone in the street and they say, "Oh, you got a Romford coat on. I used to play for Romford." Yeah. I played for Romford. And you go back and look them up and you think, "Oh, yeah, he made 3 appearances for us in 1995."
Yeah.
Well, I'm on your forum right now, so I'm going to ask them and see if they know when they played.
Yeah, well, you need a guy called Derek Robinson to come back to you. And the scary thing is, he never looks any of this up, I don't think. He's just one of those people that have got an encyclopedic memory.
Sorry about that, gents. I just had to pop off for a minute or so.
Well, mate, any questions? Any questions for Nick, mate?
I don't know where you come from. I don't know what you're on. I've just come in and hearing about some stat man at Romford.
He's just missed the last 10 minutes, so it doesn't matter.
So we're just talking about winning Garden City.
Yeah, no, I don't know if Dave obviously had gone through. Obviously, we spoke about the sort of history of Welling and how long you've been there, Nick. And
yeah, we have a little bit gone through that. I've been there 3 years. I was just saying earlier, the club have played in the low echelons of the leagues 5 and 6 for a few years, but they've had promotion, especially the last 5 years. So they've gone from obviously 6 to 5, 5 to 4. So yeah, it's all new territory for them. It's new territory for the club, new territory for the committee, the chairman, everyone. But they're learning quick. Some of the players, some of them have come through the lower leagues and that, so they're learning. But yeah, we're in a good place at the moment. Probably punching above our weight we have the last couple of years. But it is what it is. I've got some very, very good players. I mean, as I was just saying to Dave, someone should be playing higher. I mean, I think I've got 2 or 3 could play step 2 if they wanted to. But fortunately, there's a good camaraderie between the boys, and they all seem to want to stay about and play, even though they're managing.
What sort of setup have you got at the club? Is it sort of all the way down, or is it just?
Yeah, we've got we've got an under 23 team, which is quite a good feeder to the first. It's a big jump sometimes for them. Then we got academy now that's been set up this year, which goes down, I think, to under 12s. I think it's under 12s, under 15s, under 16s, and under 18s. So, but that's in its infancy. But at the moment, they're done very, very well. So hopefully, we'd like that to be a feeder somewhere along the line into the first team. We haven't got the budget to go out and get players like some other clubs, so we've got to somehow have a feeder into the under 23s, then into the first team. Got some good youngsters coming through, so it bodes well. As you know, like some mature into that player, some fall by the wayside. We've had a couple over the last couple of years, really, really good players. Just gone off the scale a little bit, just gone wandering, just trying to find their feet, obviously going into young men. Some people have got the dedication, some people haven't. And it's a shame because the ability's there. It's just, as you know, you need the dedication, and it's tough, every week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So that's something we've got to really try and work on. And I just find the younger generation, I don't know if they watch too much telly, too much football or something, but they want to sort of run before they can walk. And, I'm having people at our level, like agents, ringing me up about players, etc. And I don't even know they had an agent. So that's the sort of, place you're in at the moment. So we want to get away from that, just get back to basic coaching with them and, giving them the basics in football. And if they got the ability, hopefully they come through.
Well, one of the questions I asked, Keith, as well, I mean, you might be able to answer this as well as Nick and Steve from another direction, I suppose, in a way. But one of the questions, I was talking to Andy Leese yesterday in his after-match interview with him yesterday. And I spoke to him and I said, look, you're doing really well at the minute. You're firing on all cylinders, all the rest of it. How much then do you start to look at trying to protect your players for your club as such, with the fact that if you've got a player in your club that's not on contract, and all of a sudden you're starting to do really, really well and he's banging in the goals and all the rest of it, do you then go to your chairman and go, look, I think to protect the club and to protect the team, we need to put this guy on a contract? Would that then start coming into your mind if you think that people might be sniffing around that person to get them onto a contract?
Well, we personally had that. We've had that constantly. We've I'd say I've lost 8 to 10 players over the last 2.5, 3 seasons. But we're not in a position financially to put anyone on a contract. But I'm sure if I wanted someone on a contract, I'm sure the committee and the chairman wouldn't against my wishes. But maybe Callum Stead I should have put on a contract, who's done quite well. I know he's back at Hitchin now, but he had a little spell at South Shields, has come back. But he was a young boy we took on, had potential. Obviously, Robbie Buchanan, another one, he's gone to Ware and had potential. But I think the player, as well as the club and everyone, have got to be on the same sheet, on the same page as that. And I think it's a big decision, because obviously if they get injured, you still got to pay them. So it's a catch-22 and that. And as I said, we're not in that position at the moment to do that. So we haven't got anyone on contract, not one player. I know a lot of clubs in our league have got players on contract. If any of them, any players come to me and said, "Yep, I want to go on a contract, this, and that," we discuss it. But at the moment, I just don't think we're at that stage at the moment to put players on contract.
Steve? Well, Steve, I'll let Steve talk first on the other side of it, because obviously his club's mostly in the Guinness Book of Records for players maybe leaving and going to other clubs.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone, just so Nick's aware, we've gone from, we didn't pay any players at all at step 4 for about 10 or 11 years. So I fully sympathise with the punching above your weight statement, because without being unkind to anyone involved in our club, I think we've been punching above our weight for the last 10 or 11 years. We had an investor come in just before the pandemic who was going to help us build the ground and also put money into the team. And he did put money into the team, and we suddenly saw a lot of big ticket players that have played for other clubs from the conference and below come to the club. A couple of those were on contract, but then of course the pandemic kicked in. And of course, I fully understand that there's absolutely nothing that anyone can do about the pandemic. And no one could have foreseen it. Of course, that then left us with 2 or 3 players that were on contract. So personally, I haven't got a very good experience of it. The way that I look at it, Dave, is if I've got a player and I pay him nothing and he's a good player, and Keith comes and looks at him and Keith says, "I like that player. I know Romford don't pay him any money, so I'm going to offer him 40 quid. So Keith offers him 40 quid. He comes to play for Keith and he's still doing the business. And then Nick comes and looks at him and likes him and he offers him £100. So he's now playing for Nick for £100. And then somebody else who's perhaps top of the table in Nick's league offers him 150. And so it goes on. So whether they're on contract or not on contract, because I've tended to find if players don't want to play for you for whatever reason, they're not getting in the first team, they're not getting on the manager, perhaps they're not getting on with the people in the dressing room. All the managers I've spoken to will tell you, if you've got a player in the club that don't want to play for the club, generally they don't want him there, because normally he's normally influencing other people. Now, if he's on a contract and he's a little bit mischievous, then he could earn his 50 or 60 quid by just sitting on his bum, whereas that's another 50 or 60 quid. You could perhaps bring in 2 youngsters or bring someone in from your development squad. So I don't understand why we've got agents, and I've known players who've got agents who have been on 25 quid. So if he's getting 10%, it's £2.50. He's only got to ring up and negotiate a deal, and he's spent that on his mobile phone. So I don't understand why there's agents at step 4. To me, this level should be, and I'm a bit of an old romantic, but to me, this should be, you want to play football, and the benefits are you probably get a coach to an away game. You don't have to wash your own kit. You don't have to put the goals up. And if at the end of that, you get enough money to go out with your partner in the evening and have a meal out, or go out drinking with your mates, and it don't cost you anything, that's fine. But we have players, admittedly, they don't come towards us because they won't gravitate towards Romford because they know our position. But sometimes I get agents that ring up, and what they're after is an actual wage. And they say, well, look, he's really, really good. I think in a few years' time, he could be playing in the Premier Division, and you can have him for £600 a week. And I say for £600 a week, I'll hit the streets, lose 7 stone, and I'll play myself. Because that's just crazy sort of money. So for my view, there does come, depending on the level, I get it at step 2, step 1 and above, but step 3 or 4, I just wondered, do the lines get a little bit blurred and you've got players earning so much money, they're not playing for the shirt, they're kissing the badge 1 week and then they're playing against you 2 weeks later. Whereas if you're playing what I would call, say, expenses, which is covering their petrol and perhaps helping them buy their kit, then they're probably more invested in you as a club. The problem is, like with everything else, everyone wants the best players. And as Nick says, everyone's searching after that striker. So if a striker becomes available that Nick knows will perhaps get him 25 or 30 goals in a season, Keith will be interested, Nick will be interested, probably every team in the league will be interested. Yeah. And then it just depends, to me, it depends on where does he live, how much does he want, and do you think you'll be able to keep him long enough for him to make an impact?
Also, Steve, another thing that comes into that, I know the squad of players I've got, I haven't got one player there that's money motivated. Not one. Yeah. I know they all want to play for the club. They want to play for me. We give them everything we can. And I tell them that, as I signed them, I said, this is everything we've got, right? We haven't got no more. That's it. And I haven't had really any discrepancies at all about money because they know, I think most players know the value of what clubs can pay. They're not silly. They all talk. They know, if a club at the top of the league is playing double what we are, etc., etc. But you're right. When you've got a few gems in your side, you have everyone come along. I mean, the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think I've had about 8 or 9 7-dayers for my players. And that's just the way the game is. You cannot do nothing about it.
If I could ask Nick and, sorry, Dave, I'm doing your job here. If I could ask badly, I hasten to add, if I can ask Nick and Keith a question, if you bring a player in for training or a player rings up and says, look, I'd like to come and play for your team, can I have a trial? If he impresses over 2 training sessions and then you as managers sit down with him, if the first thing he discusses is money, does that put you off a little bit?
Yeah, straight away. And, the 2 things that put me off straight away is A, if they've got an agent, B, if they've been playing abroad, i.e. in Scotland, Wales, Ireland or America or Canada, because all these sort of players are a much of a muchness. They're what you just said earlier, as the agent says, in a year's time, this guy could be playing here, playing there. Unfortunately, I've put a few players into the Football League, Dave Kitson, Craig McKell-Smith, so I know the quality of the players they've got, and I knew how good they were when they were young. So some of these agents have come up with these players, in my opinion, are nowhere near that ability they think they are. And as you just said, they're trying to get a small 10% or 20% of their wage, which at our level is peanuts. So I don't get it. I do feel sorry for some of the young boys, though, because they're obviously they've been sold the dream and they're looking for a club. But I find the biggest thing at the moment, there's not enough people, parents, friends, agents or anything that are making them being realistic. And I find a lot of these young players are totally deluded. And eventually they'll always find their own level. But as you know, our step 4, in our league is quite a good standard. There's some very good teams in there. As I said, some have come down from step 2 and 3 to play. So the standard is good. So, you've got to know your parameter, how good you're going to be. And I just always totally honest with players. And I always take them in, have a look at them and I say, no, you're not going to be good enough, or you are. You're going to get 1 or 2 wrong over the time, but mostly we got it right. So if anyone talks money straight away of me, that's not for me. It's a no straight away.
Steve, I'm used to it, mate. I've had people ring me up asking for a trial and ask me how much before they put the phone down, before they leave and come for a trial. So it doesn't surprise you. I've changed quite a bit over the years. That the money situation now is just part of the game. I am a manager that I do agree, and when I sat down with my team at Whistler at the beginning, and I said to them, look, I know it's part and parcel of it, but the order that I look for a player is in their character, and some are different, and it all depends on people's circumstances as well. Is that I want a player to play for me, the club, and then pick his money up. If the player's playing for money, the club, and me, they're at the wrong club. And they own the club. They owe the club that, at minimum, at least, that they need to play. Now, there is money involved in football. And some of these youngsters, just say, for instance, even if we said that they were picking 100 quid up, it's easy round figure. You know, it's 400 to 500 pound a month, pays the car, a little flat. So I get it, really. I get how important that is. But if that is the be all and end all, yeah, but they've got to be worth that money as well. You know, going back from contracts, we've got 2 players on contract that I inherited when I took over, and they're longer contracts. We've got some youngsters that you know, you sit there and think, right, how do you benefit? I'm going back on the agent thing as well. I'm trying to put it all together. When you talk to players, you basically, especially on a contract, beneficially, normally it's for them. You know, there's a very famous player that everyone knows I've had that always signs a contract. He's an older player that wants to look after himself financially, future-wise, and I get that. Didn't have an issue with that. Was the most professional person I've ever managed. And, you know, if you're playing a guessing game, everyone knows who that is. So if it's a young, I think you have to look at it on terms of our level, the age, and the context of the player that you're trying to sign. I think as managers, it's very difficult to sign players on contract at our level now, and even the level above, because they've got this dream, or their agent, as you put it, tells them, no, you don't want to be signing that because they're going to stop you moving on. You know, and you sit there and as Nick said, why would you stop? The 2 things. Why do you want someone at your club that don't want to be there? So why would you stop them anyway? You know, this other thing about that as well, about, you know, if they become a problem. But if you thought they were becoming a problem, why would you want to sign them on a contract anyway? You're not looking, you know, you're looking long term. So they wouldn't come under that situation, I don't think. But I think you look more at the age of, about if you could maybe help them out. I think putting certain people on contract that you're looking to invest your time and help them progress. I think the club should look at that. I think if you've got, look at certain positions, your goalkeeper, if you think he's decent and you don't want to lose him, because that is a bloody hard place to replace. As you said, the $1 million centre forward that everyone wants, especially me at the moment. So every centre forward out there, come and ring me. Might as well use any platform you want. There's no
not my one.
Grabs, I don't care. Well, as you just said that, I'm just scouting through, and Dave's already got his number, so I just had to disappear and ring him a minute ago. So you know, I'm open and honest, so you're going to get a 7 now. But I just think it is important. You know, your type of play, centre forward. If you've got your talisman, that's just your centre midfielder, and you think, if obviously the club can afford it, and you've got to look at all the aspects. What happens, one, if they get injured? I normally put clauses in my contract, to be fair, covering that. I know a very, very big club at step 2 that does contracts that they maybe rip up at Christmas. They have that an option. So it's really a 6-month, half a year contract, and they'll renew it again. They've got that put in the agreement to every player in case financially the club has problems. There's obviously now COVID's come. There's that option. If COVID comes again, the contract becomes void. So all these contracts, you know, are maybe not as scary as you think. It's the other way of maybe getting them to sign it. You don't want everyone on it, because then also on the other aspects, as I think both gentlemen said, you don't want someone then resting on his laurels. I've known players that have been brilliant. You put them on a contract and they take it for granted, and their performances drop. So I think you've got to look at the character that you're signing as well. And I haven't handed many contracts out. I know I spoke to someone recently about one, and I thought they deserved it. I think you look at it and think, look, can we help you out a little bit as you helping us? Are you looking at me as being your long term? But going back to the agent thing, Dave, I'm not, you know, you do get some idiots ring you up and think they're an agent. But I had a player, I remember at VCD, going back a few years ago, and he had said, "Oh, Keith, you need to talk to my agent. You need to talk to my agent." And I said, "You don't even know your agent. He don't even know you. Your best agent is me.
Yeah,
I'm your manager. I know how you play football. I know the level you can go. I know your character. If you let me push you forward, I know all these managers leagues below, above. I know all the managers, you know, a lot of managers' connections at pro football. If you're good enough, the best person that they're going to listen to is me. I went, so if you want to give me 10% of your wages, I'm more than happy to take it. But, you know, I would do that for free. Surely you've got to put trust in your manager and your club, not some geezer, some bozo that's going to do 10 minutes on your YouTube and punt it around to everyone in the world. But really, and I'm being honest with these players, and I said, every manager gets them and don't even look at them. They throw them in the bin because half of it is some geezer trying to do around the world. Someone dusting your teddy there, Steve.
That's my cat.
I know. And I said, you know, most of these, you know, you're just doing tricks. So I'm watching like 50 clips on YouTube of some academy thing that you're kicking a ball somewhere, or you're doing a keepy up, or you've gone round 3 people on Hackney Marshes and smashed one in the net that's gone through an hole. So you know, you do look at some of it, but it is a tough one. But I just think sometimes you're a bit mellow. Sometimes, like I said, I even think now that players are more scared of contracts because they think that club's going to kill them because they want £3.5 million, or they're not going anywhere. And obviously, and that's what they're advised, and that is never going to happen. It is never going to happen.
That's my question.
Normally, sorry, Dave. Normally, it would be, do you know what? Like, and the manager of Whitstable Town, say Chelmsford have come in for my player on contract. You're going to go, well, okay, listen, decent player. Yep, I'm the manager. I think he's good enough. Yep. Can you do us a pre-season or something, or say even if a pro club come in? The only thing is you just look and go, look, I'm at Whitstable Town. If let's say Sittingbourne come in for you, why do you want to take a sideward step? No, I don't think that's good for you. And no, I don't think we'd let that happen.
But as managers and chairman, do you actually put in, if you do sign someone on a contract, in that contract, is there the amount that you will let them go for?
In times before, I have done that, but again, it all depends how sort of the market is at the time, and you don't really know how good the player is. But usually I don't, because if he's good enough, you'll probably have 2 or 3 clubs come in. In the case of Dave Kitson, who wasn't, he was on contract but wasn't on a big salary. We were fortunate; we had 3 or 4 clubs in sort of a bidding war for him. So you know, obviously, for the club's perspective, we wanted the best amount of money we could get for him. But I actually was Dave's agent at the time. Just exactly what Keith did. I didn't take a fee, nothing like that. I knew Dave Kitson inside out, and obviously I endeavoured to get him the best deal. And the best deal at the time was for Cambridge United, even though there's other clubs come in for it. Obviously, if we'd have held on for another 2 or 3 months, we would have got a lot more from 2 or 3 other clubs. But it is what it is. Obviously, his career, he went from there to Reading to Stoke, obviously done extremely well. But yeah, I had Dave's best interest at heart, and that was the main thing. Didn't take anything for it. As Keith said, I know him inside out, whereas these agents come in and, you know, they spin you a web of what you're going to do, hold the carrots out, etc., etc. But also on that note of what Keith was saying, I'm always weary of players that have been, you know, in the last 3 years in 7 or 8 clubs, and then they had never settled down, and you know they could become a bad egg, and you know you only want one person in your team, and it spreads like wildfire. So that's just another thing I picked up when Keith said, you know, I'm very wary of players that have had 6 or 7 clubs. So you know, I don't know if Keith's putting any stipulations on sums of money.
No, I think that's the good thing about contracts, Dave. You can, they're bog standard for everybody. It's the same contract basically.
Yeah.
But you've got additional provisions you can put in. So just like your Messi break clause. If someone paid whatever millions of pounds, they could have him. But you don't put in there the set fee because you'll be stupid. Because as Nick said, I could have a midfielder that, I don't know, Chelsea fancy and Arsenal fancy, and if you put on there, someone give me £2,000 for him, Chelsea are going to go, cheers. Normally, Chelsea will go, I'm not paying you a penny, bugger off, I'm taking him anyway, because that's what they do. They don't pay because they know that they can, because you won't stop them. But you could, and you wouldn't stop them. But no, you would listen and you'd have a rough idea. And normally the way it would work, if you did end up selling, and we sold a couple, they'd go, look, you negotiate. How much do you want from them? I want that. Normally, 100% you would put a sell-on clause throughout the rest of his career at a club at our size, at steps 3, 4, 5, 2, 1 even. You would go, if you've got a young lad, say Wayne Rooney, that's come through the youth and gone all the way through, and you would do that. You would definitely put that into that you want a 10 or 20% sell-on clause of every single club he goes to. And then if you look, that could make your club financially secure massively. There's a couple, I think, Moisa, when he was at Greenwich Borough, I think they picked up £100,000 when he signed £1 million contract at, I don't know where it was, Peterborough or whatever he'd done. And that filtered back through. It might have been Cheltenham. So and that's how it'll work really. But the main thing is clubs, you would never stand in anyone's way. You just wouldn't. I don't think there is a club here or a manager here that could do that. Because
it's a balancing act, isn't it?
Yeah, because two things that no one else would ever play for you. But like I said though, just going back to the beginning, a lot of players aren't asking for contracts, and you sort of fish them out what you think. And at the end of the day, me as a manager, if I want to put someone on a contract, I'm spending the club's money. So I need to 100% make sure it's the right person that ticks every box, isn't going to be a bad apple. Listen, I've done it with players on contract and it didn't go that, if they are a bad apple, you just find them a week's wages every single week. You don't cost them any money anyway. So it doesn't make a difference. So there are ways around it for both, for club and if they want to down tools, you just keep finding them. It's not the end of the world. But like I said, it's getting more rare definitely at our level.
So would you guys deal with the player itself? Would you always say, look, I'm only dealing with you? Or is there times when you have to deal with the agent?
Me personally, I signed a player 3 weeks ago. He come over, done a couple of training sessions. So I said, yeah, can we sign you? He went, yeah, not a problem. Signed him. Having dinner on the Friday night, my phone went. And it was some guy. He said, I'm the agent of so-and-so. I said, who? He said, the guy you've just signed. I went, I didn't even know he had an agent. I said, he never told me anything about an agent. He said, well, I want to know his deal. So I just said, sorry, pal, I just deal with the player. That's your problem. Put the phone down. Obviously, my assistant manager got a text about 3 days later saying, your manager's really rude. I don't do this. I don't that. You'll never get any one of my players. That's the way the cookie crumbles. But I'll only ever deal with the player. Or if it's a young player, their mum or their dad, that's not a problem.
I think it depends, Dave, as well, because it depends on what the player deal with the agent. If the player signed a contract with the agent, you've got no choice. You've got to deal with the agent. Doesn't happen too much at this. And if a player at our level was signed a contract with an agent, they're an idiot, an absolute idiot.
Yeah.
And that's just get saying, but and then it's down to that. But no, again, I've been speaking to a player that's a young lad that said, I have got a sort of agent. And at a time I might speak to him and if he asks me what his financial deal is, I'll say, ask the player what we've offered him. It's, because I don't know I don't trust this fellow. I've not done anything. So I think it does depend on the player, who you're talking to. Going back to, like I said, even when we go back to the player I mentioned right at the beginning, he had an agent, but I didn't deal with the agent. I've always dealt with that player. And his agent was like, he's just there if he needed him.
I think for some of the younger players, certainly saying they've got an agent adds a little bit of gravitas to it. They turn up and someone says, "Oh, look, you look really good. We might take a chance on you. Put you in the squad. Oh, you have to talk to my agent. Talk to my agent," as if having an agent validates their ability. Because a lot of these so-called agents, and we've got to differentiate between agents that look after Premiership players and negotiate deals for millions of pounds and what you've got at step 4, because when they say speak to my agent, I think what they really mean is speak to my cousin or speak to my friend or speak to the bloke who said he's going to look after me. If they're actually agents, then they'll be accredited by the FA and they'll have an agent's number, they'll have taken exams, there'll be a code of conduct they have to live by. And I mean, I had a player that rang me up, an agent that rang me up about 18 months ago, I think it was, and said to me, I've got this player, he's really, really good. I think you'll like him. He could go such and such. He only wants £1,500 a week. I said, you've definitely dialed the wrong number. I said, or our website is a lot better than we are as a club. He said, oh, right. He said, well, who would he pay for 1,500 quid a week? I said, well, I don't know. I said, for that sort of money, you're probably looking conference or possibly even League Two. Well, what conference sides or League Two sides around your area then? I said, well, Dagenham and Redbridge. He said, do you know anyone at Dagenham and Redbridge? I said, yeah, I know a couple of people at Dagenham and Redbridge. He said, oh, could you ring them for me? I said, isn't that your job? He said, well, I don't know anyone there. He said, I did ring them and they put the phone down on me. Now, I suspect that he wasn't an agent.
Steve, I had a phone
He might have been an
call.
Avon agent, I suppose.
I had a phone call a month ago or maybe a month before I took over at Whitstable, and it was someone that I sort of knew. And they went, Keith, look, you know loads of contacts, whatever. He said, I've got a player that's playing abroad at the moment. Easily can play pro football, but would step down to the conference, etc., etc. His agent wants to know. He's looking he's looking for about 1,500 quid a week, that sort of thing. He's top notch. I said, like, what's his name? Gave his name. I went, he played with me 2 years ago. He's crap. I said, I won't give him 50 quid to play at my level. I said, you're winding me up, yeah. And he was like, oh, and it just because he didn't know the player himself, and you're sitting there going, really, and when you an experienced manager like me, there's hundreds of them. They know. We all know the circuit. We know who's who. We know what they are. So
all managers talk as well.
Yeah, we all know.
They think players don't think you talk to other managers. I talk to them all the time.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the internet's an incredible resource now. I mean, the first thing, we're lucky in as much as because we want to take the people that perhaps need a chance, or we need to take those sometimes. People will ring up and they'll say, oh, I've been at Whitstable. I didn't get in the first team, but I played for their under 23s for 6 times last season, or I was at Welwyn Garden City. I played 4 or 5 times, and the manager said I was brilliant. And then they changed the manager, and it's so easy to sort of check. You just got to go on the website, and the first thing Whitstable Town manager's been with the club for 7 years. You think, well, that's wrong for a start, and then you look at their database of all their players, and you just go at the guy and say, I can't find you. Oh, well, what I meant was the under 23s, and if it's, I understand people want to big themselves up, and I get that, but I would imagine that from a managerial point of view, it's pretty obvious once they get on the training ground, isn't it? After 2 or 3 sessions, you don't even need a CV. If someone sent you 10 players and said 5 of these have got a great CV and 5 haven't, at the end of 2 or 3 training sessions, you guys would say, well, that's the 2 that I want, or that's the 3 that I want. And you'd pick those players, whatever their CV said.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I think all these players are looking to play as high as they can, as quick as they can. But getting back to that agent thing, when I sold the players, Kits and Mikel Smith and everything, even though I was helping them, I couldn't act as an agent because, as you rightly said, you have to be affiliated to the FA, you have to have an agent's number, and the only 2 people can act is a proper agent or a parent. So I actually had Barry Silkman help me out on that. Yeah, but so Barry helped me out and done the deals because you can't deal directly with the club unless you're affiliated to the FA. So I don't know how some of these agents are. Are they affiliated to the FA? Have they got the credibility, or are they just called an agent? I don't know. And that's always another.
It's not hard to become one. I looked going back ages ago, it was winding me up, and I thought, what is this? So I applied and had a look, and they sent me, it was at the time, it was something like 250 quid, and then another 250 quid to do these 2, and they sent you like a 200-page document that you had to read and do it. It wasn't particularly, and I was sitting there thinking, wow, this is too easy. Like, surely now they've got to make a bit of a clampdown on this. They might well have by now.
They must have changed, because in the old days, you had to have a bond at the FA. You had to have a certain amount that the FA held, so you acted credibility for both the club and the player. So unless they made it lenient, because some of the agents I dealt with were in the first 100 ever agents, but it seems now there's thousands of
I
agents.
think they just call it like an intermediary or something now.
Yeah,
I think that's what they're called.
Yeah, I don't know how validated that is to act for the player to a club. I don't know. I wouldn't know anymore. But I know at the time I couldn't act on behalf of them players unless I had a proper agent. So I went through a proper agent. It all worked out okay. And they were pretty fair and everything. So that went okay. But the thing that I dislike more than anything is these so-called agents are trying to sell a player of not a great ability the dream that he's going to play at this level. And that's the sad thing about it. As you said, you could tell in the first 5 minutes of a training session if the boy's got any ability. And that's the thing that I don't like. And, you know, I'm not saying all agents are like that, because I know one or two that are really good agents, you know, really clear and everything and honest and that. But the ones I've spoken to recently, not my cup of tea at all.
Yeah, Dave, just going over, sorry.
So I got just a big breaking news. Go on. Just give me just literally 2 seconds. Derek has got back to me. You'll be pleased to know you have played him. Now, whether this was the last time or not, but it was the 1st of August 2015 in a pre-season friendly, and it finished Welling Garden City 1, Romford 4.
What?
With the goal scorers Norris, Barry, Thomas, and Cossington.
Oh yeah.
Cossington, who's now
Danny Cossington at East Thurrock. Yeah.
4-1.
Oh well, there you go.
That might have been your only win that year, Steve.
Might have been. They were probably the only people that wrote back to us. We can't afford to put stamps on our letters when we asked for pre-season.
2015, remember that? You was mostly at 15. What, you've been at Farbuck's ground, wouldn't you then?
Yeah. Probably our last year or one of our last years at Thurrock. Yeah.
Yeah. Dave, just going back to, like I said, the agent, I think you know as a manager, and Nick said, listen, there are some really good ones out there that you can trust. Obviously, the ones that have just got your Sunday morning footballers that are chancing it, you know, you just look and jog that on. But normally, like I said, just if my phone rang and it was like, oh, David Square, and I knew, you'd pick it up and you'd listen to them, because they're not going to go, Keith, I've got this player, he's brilliant, he wants 600 quid a week, and I want 20%, because he knows exactly the level we're at, he knows exactly the money that's around, and he might go, look, I've got a lad for you that could be decent. Do you want him to come in? You decide what you want to pay him, and we'll go from there. That's what normally the decent ones do. And you'll listen to him. You'll go, yeah, all right, mate, bring him along.
Yeah, but that's a trust thing, doesn't it? It's a trust thing. You know that person, they know you, and that sort of integrity will go. And I would imagine if he said he's worth 600 quid, he probably is.
Yeah, I think you'll find that the good ones are good. And the other, I mean, we had another one where he said, I have a player who is very good. He's a centre forward. He's 6'3". He's strong. He can score goals with his right foot, his left foot, his head. All he needs is a chance. You know, you've got an opportunity here. Put him on a contract and make money for him. He's always wanted to play for Tilbury FC. I thought, oh. I wonder if this is doing the rounds and he's forgotten to change the club name.
Yeah.
That's not a bad little link about the next thing that I was wanting to talk about, actually, bringing up that team, because if we can just sort of change tactic, because another big announcement was made this week by Tilbury that Anthony Mercer, of course, is going to retire. And literally, for me, Anthony is a fantastic man. One of the first men that I met when we started doing this show. One of the first guests we ever had on the show as well, and he's been an absolute stalwart for non-league football, especially around in the Isthmian League and with Tilbury. And I was quite shocked because I thought he was still a spring chicken, Anthony Mercer, and I was quite surprised that he's going to retire and leave his beloved Tilbury. I mean, Keith?
Yeah, I tell you what, he was at Ware before, Dave. I remember him when I first joined years and years ago at Ware. I don't know if Steve remembers that. Big shame. Done so much for the club. You're right, both clubs. An absolute lovely fella. Always made you feel welcome. I know he watched the show. Always spoke very nicely to me. But when you're a secretary of a football club, Dave, it's half a lot of work. It's the second hardest job in the club. And I know people will laugh when you say they're the manager, but you know, the crap they put up with, the letters. You know, he had like 10-inch fingers when he started. Now he's got stumps. You know, in the writing, the emails, the grief. You know, normally 99.9% of the time it's an unpaid job. And you're the one that's under pressure, because if you make a mistake, your team gets docked points, your team, things like that, gets fined. Financially, it's a lot of pressure to take. I hope in football, I know it was, I'd like maybe the Eastern League to maybe offer him something if anything was about. I think that would be nice for him if he wanted to stay involved. But he might have just said, you know what, sometimes you know when the time's just when you've got to spend it with your family, and he's devoted so many hours to the football club at Tilbury, and like I said, when he was at Ware, etc., that you know, he just might have thought, you know what, I need a break. Or he might have won the lottery and thought, sod you lot, I'm off on holiday for the rest of my life.
I mean, Keith sort of said more or less what I was going to say. I mean, I wouldn't say I know Anthony personally, but obviously I know him from the circuit, and Tilbury had been in our division, and I spoke to him about 5 or 6 weeks ago and asked him for some advice, and he gave me some advice, and he was very good. But it must take it out of you being secretary, and you can't. I mean, you're right, Keith. You know, when you say probably 2 hardest jobs are manager and secretary, the only thing I would say in that is you do get to experience a lot of the adulation as manager when it goes right, doesn't it? If you get that last minute winner at home and you win 2-1, as you come off the pitch, people are sort of shouting your name, they want to shake your hand. You know, nobody says to the secretary, "God, blimey, good job you did a 70-mile round trip last night to go and sign that bloke and sit outside his house and wait for him to come home and then come back," or trying to get international clearance from a country you've never heard of before. You know, and if a chairman doesn't turn up at an away game, it just means there's a spare bit of cake in the boardroom. That's the only impact that has on that day.
You've been at a lot of games this year, Steve.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my pass gets me into any games, Keith. That's how I can normally eat. I can normally eat for free. You wait till I come and watch you guys.
There's oysters, though. Don't forget where we are.
Oh, they're not fattening, are they?
Get you Randy though.
Yeah, aphrodisiac there.
But it is such an important job, and as you say, I mean, I've done it a few times when, I mean, Kelly hates it when Colin goes, our secretary goes on holiday, because I always ring up and say, "Oh, have I got this right? Have I got that right?" You know, even just on the players' forms, there's so much weight of responsibility, and without being rude to players, it never fails to amaze me the lack of knowledge that players have got. Like, have you played in the FA Cup? No, I don't think so. Now, most secretaries will check, won't they? And they'll come back and say, "Oh, you did play in the FA Cup. You played in the FA Cup for Welwyn Garden City." "Oh, yeah. That was when we went to wherever, wasn't it? Yeah. You haven't put Welwyn Garden City down on your form." "Oh, well, it was only one game. Does that count?" You know, and it's things like that, or international clearance. A simple question of, have you ever played abroad? Well, what do you mean by abroad? Well, have you ever played any football outside of England? And we see clubs every year getting caught, don't we? Because the information hasn't filtered through, and I won't say there's a lack of cohesion with registered players, which we all know, don't we? You've got Sam Smith, Samuel Smith, Sammy Smith, you know, and you know, people saying that they're registered, and it's such a difficult job for the secretary. And I mean, you guys as managers, I'm sure you value your secretaries, but you know, don't you? If you want a player signed, he comes training Thursday, you want him signed, you want him to play Saturday, you know, and the bloke says, "Oh, you know, well, I work in London," and our secretary meets players sort of coming off the tube, or he goes round their house, or he tries to meet up with them, or he's dashing over to Dartford to post a form through. It's an incredible job, you know, and as I say, perhaps, I mean, I don't know what the reasons for it are, but perhaps he's, you know, just had enough, and perhaps just wants to go and enjoy his football. But I'll be honest, I've done most of the jobs in our club, but that's the one that I do shy away from.
David, I've been fortunate to obviously, I've only been at, well, now I'm at 3 clubs, but I've only been at 2 clubs over all that time, and I'll be fortunate to have the 2 best secretaries I've ever known. Obviously, you know, when I first started at Thamesmead, Dave Joy, and then obviously he come with me at VCD. He's most probably renowned as one of the best out there for me. You know, his early days at Belvedere, then Gravesend and Northfleet, and obviously Kelly Discipline. who I worked with for 3 years, who, you know, as she says, her name speaks for what she is, and it is, and still is, mostly the best secretary there is at any level, and could have gone on and, you know, at pro level, is absolutely brilliant to the dot. And now I've gone over to Whitstable, and obviously when you first get there, you think, oh, I've had these 2 secretaries, I wonder what this one's like. And I, again, have been blown away by my secretary over there at Fran. Anything I've asked her, and especially when you're a new manager going into a club that's already started, well, can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? And I'm used to obviously working with these two, and she's done everything, exactly what you said, Steve. She's there, she's meeting players at training, going around there, been off the charts. And we're all about agents and players. As a manager, your most important relationship is with your secretary. If you can get on with your secretary and your secretary thinks you're decent, they'll do all that running around for you, because they do it for nothing. If you're a bit of a, say, arsehole to them, and you're abrupt and you don't treat them right, they won't. And I think you do. I think that's the most important part of your team is your secretary. Who you get, and obviously, you know, he's done it for so many years. There must be so many players that he's met as well, enjoyed. But I will say what you're saying, Steve, about they don't have that. Oh yeah, we won. Some do. They don't also get, you know, the knives are out in the back. But the one thing they do get a buzz when you bring a new signing in, and they're like, oh God, it's him. Oh, brilliant. And they do enjoy that, and they feel your enjoyment with that. And obviously they wouldn't do it. There are some people that just love doing forms and things like that. I get it, but you know, they do feel. I think you do need to make them feel wanted, and he's been brilliant at both them clubs, like I said, and I do. Hopefully, he just wants to retire, put his feet up, because he's just had enough, maybe, of the pressure.
Have you ever met him, Nick?
No, I haven't actually. I was at Ware, but I think he might have gone before I was there. But you know, I got to agree with the boys that the secretary is so he's so important, because I'm fortunate to have 2 great people as well. I had John Allman at Arles, he was unbelievable, and now I've got Phil Ravitz. He moans a bit, and you know, I have a go. We haven't got a great rapport at times, but he's all right. He gets it done. And the thing he's moaned about now, though, is ironic. Is the international clearance? It's absolutely a minefield, apparently, and. He just keeps moaning, oh, you don't want that player, do you? He's played in Scotland, has he? I said, well, yeah, that's international, isn't it? Oh, I don't want to do that again. It goes on and on and on. But to be fair, they get it done. And you're right, everything's got to be right. The T's and the crossed and the dots, everything. But yeah, you know, it's a hard job. And this year, I think I've probably signed 50 or 60 players already this year. So, you know, their job's continuous all the time.
Because they're probably not just dealing with the first team, are they? They're probably doing under 23s, or they might be signing all your academy players.
Yeah, we've actually got an under 23 guy that does it well. It was actually just started, and he's been brilliant as well. But Phil's probably been showing him a few of the ropes as well. So yeah, I think we got 50 or 60 in the under 23s as well. So it's a lot of players we've signed, and then you've got to make sure that they don't just sign for the under 23s; they can play for the first team as well. I asked for a player the other day, and he ain't signed for the first team. So I went, well, why hasn't he? They went, well, you never asked. And I thought, yeah, he's probably right. So we left it at that. So, but yeah, it's important.
Would you have thought by now, though, secretary-wise, and that they would make life a little bit easier, the FA? You know, would there be a way of, you know, if you've got, you know, Phil Smith, that, you know, as soon as you put that person's number in, or they keep the same sort of, they have a player's number, if you know what I'm trying to say.
There is a fan number, Dave. Every player has a fan number.
But what I'm saying is, you put it into the system. You've got the system. You put it into the system, and straight away you can see that. A bit like Steve says, he's played for Welling Garden City for 1 game.
Well, our level. Sorry to interrupt. Our level doesn't go into what they call the game system.
Whole game system.
Our game system, like the whole game system, like you do on a Sunday, or to our reserves does. So you go fan number bosh, and it'll tell you all that. Our level doesn't do that yet. It hasn't come to that, I don't think. Anyway, well, I know it hasn't. So, but it would be easier, and that's what I think. But I think they spoke about it before, and they said the software would be X amount of pounds, and because exactly what Steve said, if you don't put David, if your name was David Amelia Square, but you just call yourself David Square, and we don't put that down, but your passport says you're David Amelia Square. Don't ask me where Amelia come from. You just obviously look like an Amelia, and and you know, you can get done for that now because you've actually got to say that you've looked at his passport and driving license, and that's why when you look at some team sheets, you go, "Who the hell's that?" Because his real name isn't what you've been calling him, Dave Square, all year.
And that's exactly the same now. This, for some unknown reason, this season, it's been the first season that's happened. When you're reading out the team sheet at Harlow, it says Sammy Dadson.
Yeah.
Who the hell's Sammy Dadson?
Yeah.
You know, who's that? Do you know what I mean? I always get down to it, wait, and it just sort of, you're so used to calling him Junior Dadson, but you get to the end of it and you almost stumble over his name because you're so used to calling him Junior. Do you know what I mean? It's just crazy.
That's why the FA made that rule, because it did, because people were doing that.
You do have to put the national insurance number down on the on the registration form. So of course, you know, all of those should be unique and what have you. But there are, I mean, we know there are still discrepancies, and we also know there's players wanting to sign that haven't got a national insurance number.
Exactly, yeah.
I had that issue a few years ago.
And trying to help a player who hasn't got English as a first language try and get a national insurance number. You know, it's, you know, where's his agent when you want him?
No, exactly right.
Well, I mean, what's your, I mean, especially you, Keith, and you, Steve. I mean, what was your first memory of Anthony?
First, go on, Steve, you go.
I was going to say probably when we were sort of fairly new, and probably when it was at Ware, wasn't it? I think did you say it was at Ware?
It was Ware. It wasn't. Yeah. It was Ware or Potter's Bar, wasn't it? It was
one of the two, and sort of I think he might have been involved there when we just got promoted, and it was sort of like, how do we fill these forms and how do we fill that forms? But all of the secretaries usually are pretty keen to share the knowledge that they've got. And although we've just sort of painted a fairly sort of bleak picture for any youngsters who thought they might want to be a club secretary, they all do it for a long time. You don't find many secretaries that have only done it for a year, and you get secretaries that do it at one club, and for whatever reason they might move, or they might have a manager that perhaps they don't get on with, or whatever, but they'll go and be secretary at another club. And you're right, Anthony's done it for a long time, but I bet there's a considerable amount of secretaries out there saying, well, I've done it for 15 years, or I've done it for 20 years. You know, they've done it for a long time. But he was always he is always very calm, Dave. He's just very, very knowledgeable. Like all of these secretaries are, you know, don't forget you got to do that, or don't forget, you know, when we go to these meetings at the beginning of the season, or I'm going to get in trouble now, at the end of the season, and all the chairman and the managers sit there whispering, it's always the secretaries that's sitting there making copious notes. And then the next time you try and do something, say, "Oh no, do you remember Kelly said at the meeting that you couldn't do that?" And you think, "Oh, I was trying to get a bacon roll at the time." Another bacon roll, Keith.
Yeah. No, that's it. Yeah, I'm positive it was Ware, but why does Potter's Bar keep popping in my head? Yeah, I think our first ever game in the Ryman League, going back there, and I'm saying it was a Ryman League then, was against Ware at home, and that's where I'm positive I met him. Always polite, you know, because I'm quite obviously loud. And he always used to go, "Keith, how are you?" Always had time to speak to you. Quite quiet, really. It's all the one sort of sat there, just done his job and watched the game, but very, very knowledgeable about football players, and just wanted his club to do so well, Dave. That's when Tilbury started doing so well the other year. I was like, yeah, you know, he's been waiting a long time for this. And you always think, when you think about Tilbury, I always think about him. Yeah. Because every single league do it. He had one of these faces, and you always see him.
Yeah.
You always could. You turned your head. Oh, there he is. You could pick him out in the group of as Steve said, when they're all diving to get their bacon sandwich. You could pick him out. Yeah. But yeah, no, lovely. I don't think there's going to be anyone that would have to say a bad word again. He was a lovely man.
Oh, because I always just remember he was always, whenever you used to talk to him, whatever, it would be him and. When we first started, him and Adam Silver from Redbridge, that would sort of like be almost felt like they were connected at the hip at one stage. And I still remember going into Wembley for non-league day, your long league finals day, and we were up on the top tier or wherever we were, and came down to go down to past the burger bar, and there all of a sudden these two just appear out of nowhere. Where that, where you can't go anywhere, they just walk straight to it. But really lovely guy.
Was I in the queue, Dave, at the burger bar? Or?
I don't know what people are thinking about you, mate. It's ridiculous.
It's a widescreen. It's a widescreen laptop, Keith. What can I say?
I thought you had a curved one.
Next question, Dave.
yeah, carry on, Dave.
What's the burger bar like at Romford? No, right. So I mean, moving on to Romford, though, Steve. I mean, what you've now at Barking, but I mean, where is the club now? I mean, is the club sort of okay at the moment? Are we running well? No, we had the situation with Glenn, and I mean, is Glenn still around? Has Glenn stepped away, or I mean, what is the situation?
No, he's not involved anymore. He came on board. There were two things that he wanted to do. He wanted to manage the team, and he also wanted to deliver the new ground to Romford for where we had the planning permission. So he became manager of the team, and he did invest heavily in the players. And then, of course, we got the 2 seasons that were, the first one was suspended, wasn't it? And the second one was curtailed, I think they called it. And then, of course, Glenn ran a series of sort of companies in the steel industry. And of course, like everyone else, his business got affected by that, and he had to look after his staff and his family first, which we understood. So he just said, I need to step back from what I'm doing. He was doing some work abroad as well. So sort of we brought in a new management team, and we're back as we were, really. Sort of it wasn't as big a change as perhaps it was made out in the press, sort of that he'd taken over and owned the whole club and what have you. It was just a case of sort of he didn't feel that he could give the club the time that he wanted to give it, and at the time he couldn't give the club the money that it would have needed to build the stadium. So we're back where we are on the game of Romford Football Club, snakes and ladders. We went up a ladder a little bit and sort of slipped down a little bit, but we're back where we are. We're ground sharing with Barking. They're good people over at Barking. 2 of the guys that run Barking used to be involved with Romford running our under-18s and what have you, so we know them quite well. They've got a new pitch laid at Barking, so we're not going to have issues with games being off for any reasons apart from snow, etc. And we're back to sort of running the club as it's sort of always been run. I think the slight sort of disappointment for us is that it makes it more difficult now to deliver the project at Westlands. We are talking to a couple of people, but of course this is the wrong time to be talking to people about money, as we all know, with the uncertainty with what's going on. So, but for now we're just carrying on as we are and enjoying the football as much as we can. But it would be lovely to have the club back in Romford, and it's something when people talk about, generating money and doing this, it would just be nice for supporters. I mean, there's a lot of supporters that haven't seen sort of Romford playing in Romford since the early 1970s, and it would be lovely just to have somewhere in Romford within our own sort of postcode and community that was ours. I mean, Barking's only about 5 or 6 miles down the road, but it is psychological. I mean, we have supporters that come to away games that sort of they'll travel to Bury and Sudbury, and they say, "Oh, you don't see it many home games." I say, "Oh, it's such a way, isn't it?" And you think, it's 6 miles and you've just travelled 50, but it's just the psyche, isn't it? An away game is an away day, but a home game for non-league football should just be around the corner.
Also, you just mentioned, Steve, obviously about the management team now, and I know you've got a good mate of mine and ex-player and agent, Derek Duncan, with you.
Yeah.
And obviously, Dell's played at this level and above, and absolute diamond. How's he settled? How's he doing?
Yeah, he's doing really, really well. He was part of the setup with when Glenn was there, and obviously Glenn left, and he sort of said that he'd like to continue and carry on, but he felt it was a job that would be best if he shared it with someone. So he asked us to talk to someone that he knew and someone he'd worked with before, a guy called Mark Holloway. and we said, yeah, we'd sit down, and they seem to be good foils for each other at the moment. You know, they both bring something different to it. You know, we've sort of said to them, you know, don't care how you carve it up, but, you know, I don't know whether sort of, you know, how managers work when there's two of them, you know, and but I've said to them, you know, you sort it out. You know, if one of you's doing training, that's fine, but with regards to player recruitment, player selection, you know, everything else, you know, you either got to do it jointly or split it up amongst yourselves. But at the moment, seems to be working.
So results wise, I mean, how's it been going?
Yeah, we've had a couple of almost. I mean, we've become the architects of our own downfall to a certain degree. I mean, look, it's a results-driven business, isn't it? So we can all harp about, you know, if I'd have won this game and if I hadn't have done this and if we hadn't done that. But I think Saturday was a point in question, because in the 92nd minute, I couldn't wait to get on this show because we were winning 2-1. I was going to tell you about our fine victory, and then sort of in the 92nd or 93rd minute we gave away our second penalty of the game, and it turned into a 2-2 draw. And we've had too many games this season where we've been 1 or 2 goals up. I mean, we were 2-0 up against Barking and lost 3-2. The week before we were 2-0 up in the FA Cup and lost 3-2, and we just haven't actually been able to capitalise on being in front and sort of, you know, kill games off. But, you know, it happens. And there's been other games that we've won where perhaps the league table would suggest that we shouldn't have done. But I like to think it's same old Romford. You know, if we was on a Paul's coupon, you'd never bet on us because you just never know what you're going to get. You know, and you know, I mean, it is what it is with us, you know. But we've got a good squad this season. We've been really lucky that we've only lost one player so far this season. That was Malachi, who went down to Leatherhead. He'd previously played for Clapton, and a few of the Clapton people have gone to Leatherhead, and he just wanted the opportunity to have a try at step 3. And as we were saying earlier, you know, why would you want to stop a guy from doing that? You know, if that's what he wants to do, you know, you've got to go and try. You know, hopefully it'll work out. But, you know, football's football. If it doesn't work out, he can always come back to us, or there'll be other clubs that would have him. But I think players really do, you know, they really do sort of deserve to try and play at the highest level you've got. I mean, it must be frustrating if you see a player at step 5 or step 6, you think, oh, he could easily play step 3 or 4. You know, they should at some point in their career try and test themselves, not straight away, but as you said, sort of, Nick, you've got a couple of players that in time you would hope to move on, and if they do, you get a great kick, don't you? You know, out of players that, you know, sort of that you've had, and then they're playing league football or Vanarama football. It's great to know that you've been part of their development.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, I had a couple of young boys I had for a year. Callum obviously went to Hitchin and then went on to South Shields, and Robbie's gone to Ware. I've had a few forwards go to other clubs, but yeah, you never ever want to hold anyone back, and also you never want to have anyone at your club that doesn't want to be there, because you won't get the best out of them anyway. So, you know, you shake their hands, wish them the best. I just lost Elliot Bailey to Burko. He's been a great lad for us. Elliot coming, done brilliant. Had opportunity to go to Burko. Obviously, didn't want him to go, but it was his choice. He's gone, and you know, we wish him all this. There's no hard feelings. It's just stupid. These people that hold grudges against players for doing it. Everyone's got to make their own mind up and their own decisions. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. But as you said, yeah, I've got a couple of players that, in my opinion, could play step 2 in our team now. They don't want to. They're happy to be where they are, which is fortunate for us. So I think people are getting the gist of that now. So the 7 days that come in for him, I just think they give up. But, you know, I think you have a little bit of luck as well. You know, you're telling me about your results. The last couple of years, 2.5 years, we've had a little bit of fortune go our way, the right goal at the right time, the right clearance at the right time. This year, it's just gone a little bit against us for no rhyme or reason. And I just think sometimes you've got to say it is what it is, and, you know, keep going, and your results will come. Then 2-0 will turn into 3-0.
Yeah,
you know, and it's just experience sometimes. Have you got a young side?
Yeah, we've got a fairly young side. You know, we run with just one team, so we've only got a first team. So
Right.
I mean, ideally, you'd have a 23s or a 21s or an 18s, and that makes it a bit more difficult because obviously, as a squad, we can only really keep sort of 16 players happy. Well, I say happy. You can only take 16 to your game realistically. So if you've got a squad of 20 or 22, then there's going to be 4 or 5 players that you're going to have to put out on loan to other clubs. But we just got to remember this year, Dave, we've got to stay out of the bottom 4 and not just the bottom 2. So we've got to keep making a note, because I think if the bottom 2 go down, then the next 2 go in a playoff against a step 5 side for a winner takes all position. So I mean, that'll be exciting at the end. I'd love to go and watch it, and it's not us in one of those games, but there's potentially some cracking games that could bring up. But I mean, I don't know too much about the other guys' divisions, but when I look at our division, you can't predict the results, can you? I mean, as I say, we got smashed by Malden in the first game 7-0, and we thought they were absolutely fantastic. And I sort of said, well, we'll just write that one off, because they're obviously gonna just walk the league. And you look at them now, and they're sort of 6th or 7th, aren't they? And you've got teams that I predicted. I mean, that probably didn't help them, but I predicted at the beginning of the season that I thought Tilbury would have a good chance of going up, and they're sort of in the lower half of the table. I thought they had a really good squad this season, and then there's other teams that perhaps you thought might have struggled that are higher up the table.
Yeah, but I think that does happen. I think Tilbury have got a lot of new players, and sometimes they don't gel, but it might take a little bit of time to gel. From our perspective, I thought I had a really strong squad this year. I had 22. I'll bring this up because you said you've only got 16. I had 22, maybe 24 at one stage in my squad. Very hard to keep home and happy. At the moment, I've got 11 first-team players fit. So with injuries, suspensions, how do you cope then if you've only got 16 players?
We've got about 20 to 22 in the squad. But what I was saying is you can only keep 16 happy, because you can only take like 16 to a game. Yeah. But you're right, you have to be careful, because if you have a squad that's too big, then the players that are on the fringe get, when we was talking earlier about players, really, if they're playing at sort of step 3, step 4, they should be wanting to play football. That's got to be the primary thing. It's not the money. They want to play Saturday. And if you don't get a chance to get on the bench, or you don't get off the bench, it's very, very frustrating. So it's a balancing act of having a squad where every position is covered, but it's not too big a squad that some of those fringe players might think that they've got no chance at all. So it is a balancing act sometimes. Some weeks it's fine. The manager say, I've got all 19 to choose from, and then there was a game a couple of weeks ago where we actually only had 2 subs on the bench because we had 4 fit subs and 2 couldn't make it because of work at the last minute.
Do you register some of your players?
We have done. Yeah, what, with higher clubs or with lower?
Well, with anyone you can. So I'm saying, if you had 22 players and you had like 6 or 7 dual registered, and if they wanted game
we've
time,
got a few out. We've got a few out on loan with step 5 clubs.
Yeah,
the trouble with trying to get dual registered with players coming down is often that the club at the higher level wants a contribution towards that players, and that's where it becomes a little bit more difficult. We've got players that are out sort of with a step 5 club, and they're out on loan and playing and what have you. So trying to keep them hungry. But I don't know if you guys come across it, but sometimes players are a little bit reluctant to sort of step down and go and play for someone else. They'd almost rather be in and around the first team, which is nice. But
I think they think they're being pushed out to graze a little bit, and they don't think they're going to get an opportunity. But we're fortunate we've got the under 23s, they can play, but our under 23s probably play at step 7, but they're quite a good. I mean, they really are step 6, but when you're playing at step 4 and probably the higher echelons of that step 4, the gap is quite large at times, and the jump from the under 23s to the first team is massive. And also, I think it does them good to go and play in a step 5 side regularly, week in, week out, to get their fitness up, and get acclimatised to playing competitive football again. It's very hard when you've been on the periphery and you come in for half a game or one game, and I don't. I expect them to come in and hit the ground running, and maybe it's a bit unrealistic at times. And it's so I found that quite good to put 1 or 2 of them out on loan. But the only fallback on that is sometimes they don't come back. So
I think one of the advantages that we've got, Nick, is that because of the way that we're set up, we probably give more players a chance that are not proven, shall we say? Because if you've got a big pot of money, then you've got a target list probably, don't you? Think, right, I want that centre forward, I want that goalkeeper, I want that captain, and what have you. Whereas with us, we tend to give players a chance that perhaps played at a lower level, but also we probably give them a little bit more game time at the beginning as well. Whereas, you might have a centre forward who perhaps at a higher club where the expectations are greater, might say, well, I'm not paying him X, Y, and Z. He's had 3 games and we've got nothing out of him. Where we've had players that, haven't hit the ground running, but come game 5, 6, or 7, become a real asset to the squad. And what have you. And of course, we all know that what a player is being paid isn't necessarily a reflection on their ability. We've had some great players through the sort of the years who have gone higher up and have given great service to Romford Football Club. So we wouldn't want people to think that sort of they're not good players. We're perhaps just getting a different type of player.
Yeah, but at least it gives them a chance to, give them a run in the first team, get their fitness up, get their experience, and they might develop into the player that you want. Whereas at some clubs who have got, as you say, a higher budget, they've got the so-called names that are on the team sheet, and some players don't get a chance.
Yeah.
So we're in the same boat as you. So we give everyone, all the youngsters, a chance, and see how they can progress, and that's really important.
And I suppose, sort of, and I guess Keith would agree as well, that the balance would be to have a bit of both, wouldn't it? I suppose, Keith, you was talking earlier about the spine of a team, weren't you? And sort of perhaps having players that have got some experience. If you've got a good spine of your team, your centre forward, your captain, your midfielder who talks to everyone, your centre half, your defender, then you probably can sort of throw in a couple of your youngsters for some experience, because there's people around them that will look after them.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, mate. I've got obviously my goalkeeper, centre half, midfielders, very experienced. Obviously, we're on the lookout for centre forward, but our centre forward comes back from suspension on Saturday, and he's experienced. And all I've done is I've come and brought 4 17-year-olds in, 2 on the wings, 1 in midfield, 2 in midfield, and they've been unbelievable with them. The older players really enjoy playing with them, and all. They're the legs. One of them's hilarious. One of them, I'm not mentioning them, but if they're all watching tonight, they know exactly who it is. I went. I said to the lads, we need to organise a Christmas do, and he piped up and went, "Can we do it in April?" Because he's 18. So it just gives you a rough idea of obviously, he's quite comical, and he meant it as well. So it was yeah. So he's sort of like that. So but no, it is. I think you've got to have a mixture. I really do think you need to have a mixture. Experience is brilliant. Youth give you legs. They give you. They're raw. They've got no fear. And
if they want to learn as well,
and that's it. And they will learn. And I think, and like I said, going back to Charlie McDonald, he was brilliant with the younger lads. And everyone learned from him. He come in he got there 45 minutes to an hour before training. They all started doing it with their foam rollers, their bands. They're all stretching. Didn't need us to do it. He got them doing it. And they do look. The young lads do look up to him. They really do look up to him.
Yeah, but that's what you want the ethos of the younger players to step up to. Some of the senior players I've got really experienced, do the right things, got the right attitude, got the right commitment. And if you can get that evolution going with your players, you're laughing. And as you know, every player comes to the end of his career, and you've got to have youngsters coming through. So we're on the same path as that. We've got a mixture. We're quite a young side anyway, but I think our oldest player is 30 years old. All the rest of the young kids coming through, and if they don't play, you don't know how good they're going to be. And that's, you've got to chuck them in, let them have a go.
Whitstable Town? Talk to us about how it's been and and how it's going, and a bit about the club.
Yeah, Dave, it's been a good nearly 2.5 weeks since obviously I took over. I've just been blown away. I've said on the show that after what happened at VCD, I was obviously a bit down and a bit bitter, etc. And the amount of time, the length I've been managing, I always said that it had to be the right club that I was going to pick this time that felt right for me. I wanted a little bit out of the way. I wanted a proper town club. I wanted that family feeling that I had at Thamesmead. And I wanted a crowd. I wanted ambition. And I've got that. I've walked in the door. I've met the committee, and they're brilliant. They changed the committee a few years ago. There was just Whitstable Town, and then there was like Whitstable Youth, and they were completely separate. And the obviously, and it's no disrespect, the old Whitstable Town committee were getting on like most people, and the new chairman, which was the chairman of the youth, sort of come in, and they took over, and they bonded the two clubs, and they've done it so well. They're all obviously local. They're saying their family, Dave. Obviously, the chairman and his wife are involved. The secretary, her husband's involved. The treasurer and his wife's involved. It's all couples, and it is, and they're so good. And I've been blown away with it. They've got youths from under sevens all the way up to obviously the first team. We've got a reserves. We haven't got an under 23s, but we've got a reserves that play on a Saturday, which is a bit of a blow. I don't get to watch them too much. I have had a chance to watch them, and they've got a cup game Wednesday, which will give me a chance to go down. We've got our own academy, which one play in the National League, and the other one I think it's just like in the SCL League. And then we've got under 18s. Again, we've got two of them, one that play in the Premier Division and one that's more second years and the first years, and we filter right down. So it's run really well. One of the things they did say at the interview that they are massively into is the youth side of it. They are separate where it comes to income. We're self-funded, the first team, but they wanted to see a pathway, and that's all I've ever done at the clubs I've been at is bring youngsters through, because as Steve said, we especially at Thamesmead, we didn't have any money to go out and get players on X amount of pounds all the time, so we brought them through. But I've been lucky that they've got 4 or 5 very good young lads, as like I said, and I come straight in and gave 2 their debuts, starting straight away on the wing, and they've just added pace to us, and they gave us a bit of a buzz. And club itself averages, around sort of the late 2s, 300s to now 400s to going up crowd. They really get behind the club, which is, as you know, they're called the Oystermen because they're on the sea, which is quite good. No one's actually come and bought me a tray of them yet, though. So that's and we've had our first win at home. So Saturday I'm expecting a few. But yeah, no, it's really, really well run, Dave. I've been completely blown away. It's the first club that I've had really nothing to do. You know what I'm like. I normally sit on a tractor, go around, put goals up, put the kit out, carry it home, and they've got it all covered, and it feels so right. And they've been behind me all the way. They've sort of said, "What do you need?" They know it wasn't going to be walking and just, things will start going right, even though they did. But they knew it would take a little bit of it would take a while for me to get the players I wanted in. That I've gave everyone a chance, and they've been excellent. Our 4 games we played, Dave, we've been, I've been blown away with the work rate and commitment of the players. When I first got there, their morale was down. Obviously, they had 1 point in 7 games, I think. They've been out all the cups, and they were just down in the dumps, and we've just come in and been positive and try to give them a lift, and they've responded so well. And the whole club has, not just them, the whole club has. And I said it's a sleeping giant, and I truly believe that. And I think in the right way and over time, that they could really push on. They could definitely get out the level they're at, challenge for the league above, because how big their crowds will go up. And it's a work in progress, but it's a work in progress at a club that's nice to be at. Really nice to be at.
When you go into a new club, Keith, what's, from a manager's point of view, what are the biggest challenges? I don't mean like sort of on the football front, but you were at your previous club, weren't you, for a long time, and you was at Thamesmead for a long time, and both of those clubs would have had their own culture, for want of a better word, wasn't it? Yeah. So you've gone in sort of almost like a very high position in a new company. What are the challenges that you have when you sort of go in there, because you're the new boy, so to speak, aren't you?
Yeah, you are. I think you've got to be yourself. I think I'm pretty open and honest, Steve. I think you know me as well. So and people sort of know me as that. I'd say it how it is. I'm pretty respectful, but I sort of know, because going back to my Thamesmead days when I basically owned it, I know the ins and outs of how to run a football club and what the committee and that have to do that, and the finances of it. So the challenges, I suppose, are, well, it's maybe getting people sort of to not follow you, but obviously to believe in what you're doing. And sometimes you sit there and go, well, you know, is this the right thing? But I think you've got to be true to yourself and do what you've always believed in. You know, I can get on with most people. So I think the challenge, I think the first thing you need to do is to show people that you're approachable, that you're not, like you said, a high profile part of a new company and no one can come and see you and leave me alone and my decision's final. I think you've got to show that you're open to opinions, you're open to chat. My biggest thing was to meet the fans. I think they needed, you know, to see what sort of person I am, and that what I'm going to do is for them as well as the club first. I think I needed to show the team, obviously, that I'm going to fully back them as well. So I think you just need to show people that they can trust you when you walk in the door, and you've got to be able to trust them as well. And the first thing you walk in, I think you suss out who's who you can talk to, who you can't, who you can trust, maybe who you can't if it come about. I took someone with me as an assistant that I trust, that I've known for 20 odd years. I think that was important as well. So you've always got something in your corner just to start off with. But because they've been so nice and friendly, Steve, that it's been quite easily for me to go in there. I feel like I've been there for a few months, if I'm honest, not just a couple of weeks, because anything you sort of ask for, if I can help, I will. They're very self-run. The club meet is more important than anybody, and that's the way it should be. They're not going to break the bank, and they're not going to get themselves into financial debt to go and sign any players. There is a budget, and it's very strict. That was maybe one of the hardest things for me to do, to come in and inherit someone's budget. When you come in at the pre-season, you've got a blank canvas. When you go in and the money's there and that's it, you've got nothing to work with. So that was a little bit different, because I've never gone into a club, obviously, you know, part of the way through, especially being part of the way through where it's only 8, 9, 10 games, where any players you want are settled in their new clubs and they're not really, you know, looking to move because the season's only just started. So they're the sort of challenges you have. A different culture as well, because you're sitting there, you don't want to come and go, well, this is the way I've always done it. You've got to go in and go, well, how do you do things? I sort of do it that way. Can we blend together? And the good thing is about the club, they're very open to listening to my opinion, which I haven't gave them yet, to be honest, because we've had games, we've had a couple of home games. The chairman's been off ill with COVID, so I only seen him at 2 games over the few weeks. The secretary I speak to all the time, she must be absolutely cheesed off with me, because there's either an email coming, a text coming, or whatever. But she's been brilliant. And the first thing I did want to do when I got there, I wanted to speak to the reserve team manager, I wanted to speak to the academy manager, and I wanted to speak to the youth team managers. Because as you know, and I know this because I've done all the jobs, is that they don't always get on. You know, the reserve team manager or the under-18s manager thinks he's better than that and that and that and that. And the only one that suffers are the players. So I wanted to sort of iron that out first, which, to be fair, wasn't an issue. They were very, very accommodating. I think they've been surprised because I've gone and watched them all. I've managed to go and watch the academy. I've managed to watch the under-18s. I've done that before my kids' game yesterday. I've managed to go and watch the reserves. So they've all seen me. Everybody's seen me around the club. And I think that's the most important thing, is to show them that you're willing to work and you're there. I'm not just going to turn up on match day with a bag and then at the end of the game, oh, I'll see you in 2 weeks' time. And that, I think that's one of the challenges, that you've got to make sure that people know you're around, you're approachable, and you're part of them. Because I want to be in, I've said this, I want it to be in a club that I'm looking long term. I'm not looking to be there to the end of the year. They might all be sitting there in the committee, we need to have a meeting because I'm not happy with that. But, you know, I'm looking to build something. And I think the club are looking to build something. And that's why it attracted me. And that's why I actually accepted the job, because I could have got offered it and think, do you know what, this isn't for me. But they're looking to build something. And I thought that was really important at a club that wasn't looking to just give me, say, here, Keith, there's £5,000 a week, get us promoted. But if you don't, 1, you're going to get the sack, or 2, the club's in a bad way for 5 years. And I didn't want to hear that. So when I first went, I didn't even talk to him about money. We never spoke at my interview about money at all. It was only obviously after we spoke when they offered me the job, and that's when the budget was brought up.
That because you didn't bring your age. Was that the reason you didn't speak about money? Was that because you didn't take your agent with you?
Don't forget, Dave, I am the agent. But what I need to check, because my wages, I don't know if I've got the extra 10%. No. But yeah, and I think that's important as well. I think the money thing, as you said, as you interview or a player talks to you, the first thing you don't want to hear is, well, how much money is the club got, or how much money. One of the things I did ask, and I think you need to, is to make sure the club's financially sound. I didn't want to be in a club which I knew wasn't the case anyway, and at Christmas, at the end of the year, after I'm giving 110% and putting everything into the club, they're going to go to me, our club's struggling really badly. If it did, then we'd negotiate. But I wanted a club that's go, yeah, we're steadily building. This is what we want. We've got local rivals of Herne Bay. We've got Margate, Ramsgate. You could even look at Dover. Faversham, if you come a little bit. These are big towns. These are big clubs and big towns, and they can compete with that. And it's such a different feeling, Dave, with what I've been to at VCD and Thamesmead, and that's not taking anything away from both of them clubs. That there's like 30 clubs in a 1 mile down the road, and Phoenix is across the road from VCD, and you got it's hundreds. This was a club that I thought, now this is a proper football club. But when you walk in the club, I don't know if anyone's been there. It's like an old-fashioned ground. It's all enclosed. It's got an old stamp. They've really done up. The changing rooms are old, but they're done up. They're fine. The bar's a town bar, and everyone that comes to the game, it's their day out, and it's brilliant. And it means so much. And you can just look at them. It means so much to them that this is their football club. And as soon as you walk in, I've got to give everything I have for these people, because I don't like letting anyone down as it is. But you're walking in there, as you said, Dave. There's media people. All I'm doing is interviews. I'm doing newspaper things every other day, because all of a sudden Kent Whitstable's a big thing, and it's a big buzz, but it's quite a big commitment. But it's just that they're just lovely people, and you want to do it for them.
How far do you live, Keith? Sorry, Keith. How far do you live from the club?
45 minutes.
45 minutes, yeah. So it's just not too bad, yeah.
No, your team, not the players, but your team, because it's something that we've never spoken about, even privately. I've no idea. I mean, me personally, sort of don't even know what your team is. Your goalkeeping coach. Have you brought most of the people with you from?
No, I didn't, Dave. 2 reasons. One, obviously, I knew the people at Whitstable. I always had a soft spot for Whitstable, going back years. And I keep saying this in all my interviews. When I was at Thamesmead and we were challenging, they were challenging and all, and their manager had become very good friends of mine, Mark Seegers. And obviously he took him into what was then the Ryman League, and obviously then he left. And I always got on with the committee, and I thought, this is a club that, even out the way, I really got a little bit of time for. And so they had the goalkeeper coach is Mark Lane. He was there going back all them years. I've known Laney for years. And obviously my assistant manager was my goalkeeper coach for 20 odd years, Steve Waite. But Waite is 67 now. And I said to him, look, Steve, I said, the next job we get, you've got to have a break. You're coming as my assistant. We're very good mates. I can trust you. So he come. But obviously, I had Danny Lee, who I trusted really well as a coach. And Dan moved up to Malden. And obviously, he had personal things where his family wasn't too well. And I said to him, I offered him, I said, Dan, did you want to come? And he went, Keith, lockdown sort of changed my mind a little bit with my priorities. And I was like, fine. And obviously, Mel went off to Barking. And I didn't ring Mel back. We met up just out of lockdown in London, all of us. And we put it on him a little bit. So a job come up there. And I thought, I got offered it. And as while we were sitting drinking, and Steve said take it, and it wasn't what I really fancied anyway. But Mel sort of, you could see, wanted to stay at Barking. It was on his doorstep, so he wasn't there. So when I went, there was a lad called Ben Harding, who was the first team coach, who obviously applied for the job. Lovely fella. For the last few weeks, has been brilliant. Well, unfortunately, he's stepped down today. So I am looking for a first team coach. So anyone out there wants to apply, come and see me. We've got a great physio. We've got an unbelievable kit man that does everything. And I mean, like, no one's even nicking a bib or one of them little plastic cones. or he will come and find you. He'll be knocking on your door, or he'll hunt you down. It don't matter where he is. All these people, like I said, they do it for nothing and are brilliant. So, you know, we've got a decent people that can trust me. When I first went there and going to maybe what T said, you know, even though I knew Laney well, didn't know what I was like. None of my staff, apart from Steve, knew what I was like. So you had to sort of win them over a little bit, but again, you had to be yourself. But after 3 or 4 weeks, well, 3 or 4 games, not weeks, they've sort of seen who I am, and hopefully they've all joined and bonded with that.
Would you look inside the club for your first team coach though? Would you look at, say, somebody from the reserves or somebody from your under 18s?
Well, it's being advertised. I spoke, Dave. I spoke to a player today that's injured, long-term injured, that I know is coaching somewhere, but he's just doing his rehab on the days we have training. So the first thing you talk to people you know. I've always been, apart from with Danny Lee and Ben I've always done the coaching myself, because I had a couple of coaches that I didn't really trust over going back years. But I trusted Danny immensely. So I said, look, I want this session put on. He did. And I've done the same with Ben. He was brilliant. And I said, you know, and so I think you just got to see who you trust and who you can work with, really. Mm. The trust is the biggest thing. You need people behind you. You can't sit there and go, is he going to talk to the chairman behind your back? Is he going to go and talk to him behind your back? And that's a major thing.
Looking back, Keith, you know, hearing you talk so passionately about the club now, do you think the enforced break that you had was good for you and the family? Or, you know, I know you know, when I spoke to you, sort of a little bit frustrated that you were sort of out of football. But looking back now, do you think that was good, or would you have still liked to have jumped into a job sort of straight after coming out of VCD?
It had to be the right job, Steve. I got offered 5 jobs. I ain't gonna lie, between that and the Whitstable job, and I just said, I said, okay, take that. You need to get back into football. But I was coaching my kids' side, so I'm getting a football fix. See, I'm great friends with everyone at Phoenix. I was down there watching, and obviously, you know, any managers that was ringing me up asking for players or some advice, I was giving them that. The time out, I was mostly, I would say maybe gave me a little bit of passion back. I'm not sure, because this club has, anyone that speaks to me says, Keith, you've got your bounce back. And the passion is back there, because I like to get something to get my teeth in. But I don't know, you know, if this job would have come straight up after VCD, I would have took it straight away, because this was the right job for me. But yeah. I think it's made me, and everyone's going, we're waiting for it, it's made me a bit more mellow. Like I said, the referees will tell you that on the sideline, because I've watched so many games of managers going nuts, and I was like, oh God. And I think maybe COVID gave everyone a different perspective in life, I suppose, on what it is. And, you know, maybe in a few months' time, there'll be another referee that come on here going, well, that didn't last long. But we don't know. I don't know. I can't say. Nothing's rattled me. I think because maybe I'm buzzing and enjoying it so much, I'm letting a few things go. So even like I said, we won the first 2. We lost the last 2 on Saturday to a very, very good Ashford side that's going to obviously be in the top, if not win the league, in the top few. But for half a game, they physically battered us, and we should have come in 2-0 down. The second half, we absolutely battered them, and their keeper gets man of the match, and we should come off with a draw. So, you know, I've got that togetherness already within 3 weeks from the players and the committee and the supporters, and I thought it would take a lot longer. And it just seemed like they were desperate for someone to come and do that. And that's what I've done. I don't think I've waved any magic wand. You know, I've been struggling to get players in. I brought one in, I brought the youngsters in. I have just agreed to sign someone else that will be announced on Thursday, which I'm pretty pleased about, to give people a lift. And we're looking for 1 or 2 more. But I've also said to the club that I'm not going to go and waste their money either, because, as you know, people are asking for inflated. And I know, you know, this league and the league's inside out, and I sort of know what people are worth. And I'm not going to do a Moody and put the club in it just to get someone in. The players we got I think are very good, and we just need fine tuning.
And the boss has got a house back as well.
Who?
The boss.
Who? Is that why she's in the kitchen?
I hope she's not listening.
I don't know about that.
Keith, how long were you out? How long were you out of football then?
18 months.
Right.
18 months.
Keith, I had a 3-year break and a 4-year break. And trust me, I'm a bit older than you. You need that break, because
you do.
You can't just keep going continuous all the time. Yeah, if you're probably like me, I put 100% in it, and if you can't put that 100% in it, it's always good to have a break. So I think then you're good.
Yeah, I said I've been doing it 20 odd years, but yeah, like I said, the break doesn't do you any sort of harm. But when your football's there, and Dave, like I said, we were saying on Tuesday night after our Sitting Bull game, we were so good, and it seems weird. I missed not sleeping that night when all you're doing is thinking about the game. I missed that feeling. Obviously, the 3 points on the Saturday and the banter with the lads you miss and things like that. But listen, I'm lucky, my family have embraced it. They all they travel down to Ashford, my 2 boys, to watch on Saturday, and they've been to Witch the Ball and things like that. So, they always knew that I wanted a job. And I think they've been, at the beginning, they were like, oh, that could be a bit of a journey, especially if traffic does it. But they've just seen the difference in me again. And like everybody that needed a bit of a lift over COVID, I was mostly one of them as well. And you do sit there, it's weird. People sit there and go to you, because you did that yourself. Well, maybe you won't get another job, Keith. Maybe, you are too old and whatever. And the thing that, you speak to people, and I don't know with Nick, and you look at your CV and you go, well, all these youngsters, we had someone on the show, Dave, not that long ago, and I nearly let him have it, to be fair. And it was they were going, this is a young person's, people look at young managers now. And I'm like, can I say this to you, Steve? If you was a chairman, would you look at a young manager that's won nothing, or look at a manager's CV that said he's won something? Because there's a lot of managers at our level that have won absolute nothing whatsoever. And I'm like,
it's the same with any job, though, Keith.
Yeah, exactly it. And I looked at this lad that I was interviewing, and I nearly went to him, do you know what? You're talking out your arse. I wouldn't even give you a job, right? And he's been on the show. And he's like, oh, no, it's all about youngsters now. Like, the older thing, things have changed. Football's changed. And I'm like,
it's the same with coaching badges, Keith. Some of the best managers I know haven't even got level 1.
Yeah.
But they're just great managers or great coaches, because at this level, and I don't know if you agree, Nick, as well, sometimes it's the man management, isn't it? You don't need to know sort of about, you've got a coach that takes your technical side of things, but as a manager, you've got to know your players. Does he need a kick up the backside, or does he need an arm round him? What helps him?
Is paramount. If you can manage, and don't get me wrong, I'm not always everyone's cup of tea, and it's hard to play for me. I've got to be honest, because I really push people to the limit, and I expect 100% everything you do every single game. I was fortunate I played in good teams with good players, and that's what they demanded from me, my own players. So I expect that from my players. And if you can get that out of them, and if you're right, you got to put your arm around someone you got to give a bollocking to now and then. But if you can get that right, and get the coaching structure right, you'll be on the right path to being successful. And but I agree with what Keith said. Some of these so-called younger managers, in my opinion, haven't got a clue. There's some poor managers and coaches at our level, but someone's given them a job, so someone thinks they're good.
In all fairness, is that kind of same? I'm not in anywhere near as coaching wise as you two guys or chairman you guys, but even in the business that I'm in, I get my staff come into me and they turn around to me and go, look, great, Dave, look, we finished second this week. And I just turn around to them and go, well, we lost then, didn't we?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We didn't come first, we lost. What's the point? Do you know what I mean? And I'm the most competitive person. People tell you that as well. I'm really competitive. If I was playing musical chairs with the kids when they were younger, I'd pull the chair away to make sure they couldn't sit down. And I did. So it's just that type of thing. But listen, guys, a really fantastic night. The time has flown by. There is just one more thing I need to say before we go. Next week is a Gordon Boateng tribute special next week. So if there is people out there that have got memories of Gordon, if you want to come on the show next week and share your memories of Gordon, stories of Gordon, and then please, by all means, contact us and let us know. If you don't want to come on the show, but you'd like to do a quick video, a 2-minute video or whatever it might be about your memories of Gordon, then please send them to me. Or if you've got Keith's number, and send them to Keith, and we'll put them on the show for you next week. We're just going to do this bit of a tribute to a man next week. And so please be part of the show next week and show your love for the man. next week. It was fantastic this week, and I don't know if Keith saw it, and you guys saw some of the minute silence, minutes applause that was given out this week. It was a fantastic tribute to him. We just feel like we need to do something for him, or especially myself, we need to do something for the man next week. So next week will be a Gordon Boateng special. So please, by all means, even my daughter's going to come on next week, which is a miracle. For the first time in 10 years, she's actually going to come and sit next to me. But the fact of the matter is if you want to give that tribute, please either do it by emails, if you just want to write something down that we want to read out, if you want to put a video together that we can put together and put onto the show, or even if you want to come on and share that with us next week, then please do, because we'll be doing that next week between me and Keith, 7 till 9 next week on all the normal channels that we normally do it on. But a massive thank you tonight to Nick from Welling Garden City, and of course as well a good friend of mine as well, to Steve. Thanks for coming on, sir. And of course to the main man himself, to Keith as well. And hope he picks up the points, and the same with you, Keith. Sorry, Nick, as you're not playing us this week. And
don't worry, it's in my memory bank. We get you.
But of course to Steve as well. Hopefully everybody gets the points and that they deserve at the weekend. But until next week, and the Gordon Boateng special next week, from me and Keith, thank you for watching, and good night.
Good night.